Hello and welcome back to the Para Connection podcast. You're here with Schuler and once again, Mr. Sharkchild. As promised, we are now jumping into episode 2 and going through Mr. Sharkchild's The Dark Verse. On today's episode, you will learn how one man's perception of the supernatural world can create endless and vast possibilities. For our sake, let's hope they're truly just stories and a work of fiction. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right back in and experience the Dark Verse. Now, moving forward here, what I would really like to get into to get this going is tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the writing aspect of your life, because you write a lot. You're obviously an author, and you make awesome pieces of work about the occult, the supernatural, and just things that I don't think a lot of people even think about, but you make it, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess, I don't know, I've always, growing up, like, as a kid, and I've always been drawn to be the villain. You know how when you're playing around and you're just choosing, oh, I want to be the good guy or the hero, or like I was always drawn to like the dark side of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something that always piqued my interest. And then you see all these things on shows that you're not supposed to watch and whatever. And I was just like always drawn to that. So I don't know. It was just kind of like innate within me to be drawn towards the darkness. And so it was just natural for me. That's like, I'm a very creative person. And so it was just very natural for me to use that creativity and channel it into more horror, into that realm. And really, like when you look at the different genres of anything, creative, like horror, you can do so much. You can have fantasy, you can have philosophy, you can have metaphysics.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do anything and everything in horror. So that's just my playground. And then as far as like writing goes, I always wanted to be like a master in whatever field I chose. I wanted to be the best that I could be. And I had a really good English teacher in high school, and I had her for 3 out of my 4 years. So I just really got great knowledge. And so that really kind of sculpted me as a writer. And I realized that I could use writing and be a master at creating tales, or at least a master in my own way of writing and creating these tales. So that's kind of how, some of that got started. And then I just took it seriously back in 2007. I started the Dark Verse podcast. I think it was in October. I wrote my first story called The Unlike Light.
Awesome.
It's actually one of people's most, their favorites of my stories is the first one. I don't know how that happens, because I feel like you're such a novice at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yet, it's probably happened to you investigating too. Some of your earlier investigations are probably some of your more memorable ones.
Yeah. That's very true. That could be with you. You had so much of that umph and passion. You just came out with this firecracker of a piece. And yeah, the same thing with my investigations, man. Like some of the best times, some of the most memorable experiences.
Yeah. So I just came out as, I think I can't remember how old I was. Well, let's see if we take 13 years back. So that like 22 years old, that's when I started.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just dove into the podcast world, podcasting. Nice. And I had like no followers, but I just kept going. And I set a schedule up for myself to do a story every 2 weeks from that point, from the start. Yeah. And I was on that schedule, I think, for almost 2 years, that I was able to actually do a story every 2 weeks. And then after I had a year's worth of stories done, though, I was like, man, I need to take this to the next level and make a book.
Yeah.
And I just had this great idea for this black book. So I that's what I made the Dark Verse Volume 1 as a black tome of beauty.
That is
so
awesome.
I put those stories in there. Went the self-publishing route and kicked off tried to kick off a career then of writing and publishing. And then I've just been slowly chiseling away through the years since then, putting more stories out, more volumes. I currently have 4 volumes out now with 26 stories each, and then I'm going to be putting out a 5th volume later in the year. That's going to be also very, very badass.
Awesome. Yeah, I have to say they are pretty badass too, Sharkchild. You know, looking at them and seeing them, the way that the pages are made and the illustrations that you have that follow with them, and the actual development of the book itself. Like you said, it's a tome, and even for people that's not into the supernatural and the occult, it's just really cool how you have them made. Like any library, any personal collection needs books like that. They stand out.
Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the battle that you need to win as an indie author, because it's like, if you got to grab someone's attention. Otherwise, no one's going to touch your book. If your book screams that it was self-published, like, why is anyone even going to take time to read it? So I wanted to make something that didn't slow me down as far as doing it on my own. So, if people see my books, there's no way they would think that I was just some self-publishing author, and that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
To get my foot in the door for new readers.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, that approach right there really stands out. No matter what you do, but especially as, an author and your own publisher, it really works well. And to grab people's attention and to show them what type of category of works you have, that's how you build that correct audience. And hopefully you've seen that development over the years too, with each book, each, podcast released. It's just kind of like that progression that really makes you.
Yeah, it's been, the fans are the best. And I'm sure that goes across the board with any entrepreneur or any creator, but when you get fans that love what you do, it just makes it worth it alone, even more than the money. And that's what pushed me on for years. It wasn't until last year that I really made some good money. So it's been, over a decade of just doing it for the love that some people give you in a review, or, you know what I mean? So.
Absolutely. Yeah, and through books, podcasting, personally I've learned this, and I'm sure you've learned it too through your outlets, Sharkchild, is that it's that community that you can build with, that you can congregate together, that typically you wouldn't have been able to even not only establish but discover, without you putting your light out there. And you have people all over the United States, all over the world that kind of come to you. And the next thing you know, you have this family of people that you're communicating with. And you all have that mutual ground of man, I love these stories. Or man, I love this aspect of this. Or man, I love this type of style of, work. And that can really make a difference.
Yeah, no, it does. And what I didn't mention before is the first book I funded myself, but each subsequent book I actually used Kickstarter to offset some of the printing costs and stuff like that. So that was a fantastic place where I built that exact community that you're talking about, where people came together to help me make these books.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That it works so well like that, and that you can continue to create these books and, hopefully make 1,000 more, be the next R.L. Stein, if you will,
Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm still young enough so I can make many, many more volumes. We'll see where we can go with it. Maybe one day, hopefully a movie or something, or
that would be awesome.
A Netflix series.
That would be really cool. Yeah, I could totally see your books going into a Netflix series. Each episode a different story, a different change, and maybe even connect into something greater towards season 5 or something, but that'd be really cool. My biggest question for you that I have here, and I'm sure I can kind of razzle some more, but I would like to know, Sharkchild, what inspired you to get into this category of book writing? Well, why didn't you choose something more classic, old ghost stories or zombie books? You chose this supernatural occult, and it is so unique and just mind-boggling, opening, all that good stuff. What made you choose that?
For me, it's just because it has to be something unique that I have made. I can't use a zombie because I didn't create a zombie. I can't do a vampire.
Yeah.
I didn't make a vampire. You know, I even consider my work like Lovecraftian, but I don't have any Lovecraft elements. It's only in style and in spirit that it's Lovecraftian, not in content. That I just always have to be original. So, and that's where it took my writing. This is what is like genuine to me. If I want to write what I want to write, this is what it is. It's not for anyone. It's not to fit in any box or anything. This is just what I love to write about and how I like to write. And that's what it is.
That's fantastic.
And I think a lot of people see that. There's people that just absolutely love it. Like they get the kind of, it's weird. It's like some of the stories are very evil and dark, but it has a very childlike, imaginative sense to it. And some people really get that. Yeah. They just love it. And then there's other people that will really critique my work and say like it's not structured enough, or you know what I mean? Like they're very critical and they just want something more classical, like they're used to. And I just don't provide it. That's just not how I write. So
yeah. You know, and with that right there, the best thing I can say about people that critique you, and it may not be completely this, but if you obtain quote unquote haters, or if you obtain that critiqueness from people that they're not completely satisfied, I feel like you're still doing something correct. Because if you have everyone's approval, are you really accomplishing what you're going for with that unique texture, with, you know, the right structure of what you're trying to obtain? Yes, it's great to be able to satisfy everyone, but the reality of it is that it's not going to happen. You're going to have your appropriate audiences. You're going to have the correct people following you that enjoy your works for what they are, and you're going to have people that obviously have their own taste, and that's fine. But some people are just going to be a little more loud about it, even though they should probably just pass the book on. But you know,
I don't know about you, but like if I don't like something, I don't say anything. I don't want to like, you know, ruin someone's day or something like that. You know, like if I love something, sure, like give someone praise. But like if I don't really like something, like why am I even going to bother and put that negativity online? You know? And yeah, like you said, I've gotten some haters recently. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, what? Did I like offend you? Like you didn't have to read my book. Like, why are you like attacking me?
Yeah.
You know, that's what it feels like. It's like, oh my gosh, like honestly, like just go read the book that you want to read. Don't deal with me anymore. Why did you need to write that review? Like,
yes.
I can't comprehend it.
Well, it's like the people like that, they take more time and energy into doing something negative like that, and they could have done something completely different. You know, like go clean your car, or, you know, go create your own work. And honestly, I find people that they outlash like that, or that they give that type of energy, to possibly even be jealous.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it is. I think they're mad that there's some type of success with the books, and they just can't fathom that, so they just have to try and bring it down, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And it's sad that people are like that, and instead of, you know, taking that and be like, oh, this guy's successful, maybe this is someone I could talk with and get some advice from, or, you know, maybe just take your style and be like, man, if I could create a cool book like that, not exactly his, but something unique, take something positive from it. But obviously not everyone's going to be like that, unfortunately. But, you know, I take everything with a grain of salt. I've had plenty of haters towards my paranormal team. We are nothing of like Ghost Adventures. You know, we're not super rich. We're not traveling the world on checking out every haunted location. Fingers crossed one day. But, you know, we've had people hate on our team in the sense of the way that we investigate, the way that we're open-minded, the way that we go into different locations, we accept different people. And it's like, I don't understand how you can take that negative energy and just try to tear someone down. Instead, maybe talk to us. Try to communicate and understand our ways. Or if you don't like it at all, just continue on until you find something that you do like. I mean, that's the same thing I do. I don't agree with everyone. I don't like everything that everyone does. But if they're not attacking me personally or making my day worse, you know, directly, like, Schuler, you are complete crap and I'm going to destroy you and your team, I'm leaving it be. I'm just going, you know. I mean, I know that's a little far out there, but you know, it's just, it's not worth it. And you know, you always have to take those people with a grain of salt. But ultimately, what I see you doing, Sharkchild, is a fantastic thing. And it's wonderful that you're able to take your podcast and turn it into something that people can hold and read and share. And honestly, something I would like to compare your works to, not necessarily that you make it like that, but in the sense of the uniqueness, is a childhood collection of mine that I grew up with because I was a demented little kid. I liked horror when I was like 5, but thank my grandma for that. But it's the scary stories to tell in the dark.
Oh, right, yeah.
Those are classic. Even reading them today, it's like, man, they're still kind of creepy. They don't scare me as much, but they're still creepy, and they hold that special place in my heart. And as a horror fan, I hope other people, you know, whether they're younger like I was when I first started reading these, or even older, they can take your works and read your books and be like, oh man, these are going to be those awesome scary stories to, you know, read to people or my kids during Halloween or around a campfire or something. That's great that you're making work like that.
Yeah, like, and that's how I feel. I kind of tell people mine are kind of more the adult version of those scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of crazy that kids got their hands on those books. Like when you look back, it's like, what? That was in this, like, Scholastic magazine.
Yeah.
Like I feel like parents would like flip out nowadays, you know?
Well, I mean, they are pretty crazy. I mean, there's some of them in there that are a little morbid in the sense of people dying from a demonic entity. Like, come on now, you shouldn't have your little 6 or 7-year-old reading that, you know. But I mean, you know, to each their own, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually have, so if any listener is interested, one of my stories in one of the episodes in my podcast, it's the 115th episode. It's called Orchestrations of the Stitted. And the STIDD is actually the acronym of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Really?
So, so that's kind of like a throwback, you know, throwback little tribute to those very books.
That is wonderful, Sharkchild.
Yeah, and in that short story of mine, I actually have 3 short stories, separate little short stories that make that story. So, which I've never done in any other of my stories. So it was kind of a unique one.
Cool. Yeah, and for you to take that element to, you know, change things up, I find that awesome because it's not always going to be that same formula. You know, if you feel like you want to throw a curveball in there, you can, and it seems like it's a natural, you know, thing for you to just be able to make it happen.
Yeah, I can. And that's what the joy of doing it, you know, being your own boss is. You can do whatever you want. No, you know, you don't have any director or producer that says you can't do that, or maybe you should go in this direction. And you see that all the time, like musicians, or even, I don't know, writers, probably musicians more so, like where you see their music change because they got involved with a big label that, you know, they wanted certain songs, certain recipes.
Yeah, and that is a sad, you know, understanding of, you know, how things can go when you start going down that pathway. Is you kind of lose that control. You lose that uniqueness if you decide to go down that path. But
yeah, but not Sharkchild.
Awesome.
Everything I got is can be craziness every time. So
that's great stuff, Sharkchild. It really is. I'm glad that you're doing it that way and that you're able to actually formulate your own plan and, you know, make these masterpieces. In my opinion, you know, it's kind of like the games Diablo, or, you know, for me, classics, Resident Evil. You know, those are like their own original takes on, you know, a demon fighting game. Diablo, you think Diablo, you're like, that's the devil fighting game. It's cool, you know. And then zombie games, you think, at least old school players, you think Resident Evil. It's like, you know, and that's the kind of thing with your works. People might be able to think about that in the sense of like, yeah, we got scary stories, but we also have the new generation of scary stories, which is, you know, the Darkverse, and that's just awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of where I want to have my place, because that's what I always tell people. Like, if you just want a completely unique blend of horror, check out my stuff, because it's nothing that you'll ever have read before or, you know, watched in a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's so difficult too, it seems, even for Hollywood. A lot of people have been complaining. They keep spitting out the same stuff. It's just remake after remake. And if you think about it, it can actually be kind of difficult to have original content. A lot of things have already been thought of, but, it takes a very unique individual with that creativity to be able to take something that's not been created and put it into this modern day. Because there is so much technology, there is so much understanding about fiction and nonfiction and science fiction, and I mean just everything. There's so much that's been thought of at this point. But when you can make something that's not been thought of yet in this day and age, in my opinion, that's creativity. That's a whole nother level right there.
Yeah, I agree. It's fun. It's fun to do it. It's fun to provide that content. It's funny, even when you say that, even some of my stories had overlap with other ideas that showed up in like Black Mirror or something.
Okay.
And it was both of us creating it separately,
Yeah.
like thinking of it separately.
You have those individual minds going at the same time, just different places, different outlets.
Yeah.
Man. That's a whole nother type of deep thinking right there. I tell you. Man. So Sharkchild, moving forward, I know you said that you're working on a volume 5. Moving forward with that, how do you feel that volume 5 is going to come out? Do you feel like it's going to be greater than your previous works, about the same? And then after volume 5, do you see a future installment?
Yeah. So there'll for sure be more installments. I'm not even going to put a cap. So it's basically an undisclosed number of volumes. They'll just keep coming out as I can do them. But
okay,
I would say volume 5 is definitely on par with anything else I've done. The one unique aspect with this new volume is that in the previous volumes there's 26 stories in each volume, but in this one there's going to be 13 and then a novella that I've written, so called Spectre Helm. So that's going to take up the second half, and so that's new. And this novella isn't on the podcast. The only place you'll be able to read it will be in this volume.
Wow.
And this was already funded on Kickstarter. People can still do a late pledge on my website through my store, which you've done, Schuler.
Yeah. Hey, I'm
you.
You're on it, man.
You did it. So anyone can still do that late pledge because there's been some delays with other reprints of mine, and then now with this new book it's going to be pushed back, but it's going to be coming out, and it is going to be definitely awesome. I got a new artist on there doing some sweet art. I got the same artist that I've used for the covers doing the cover, and I think I like a lot of my newer stories. A lot of people always go back to some of the newer stuff. Oh, you don't write anymore like you used to. It's like I'm just writing the way I know how. I'm back. It's just me.
Yeah.
The only element that's changed is me. Probably what you go through in life or whatever. But
yeah.
But I probably put more time into the newer stories than I did back then. Because look, back then I was doing it every 2 weeks, so you could say I was rushing the stories.
Yeah.
It's funny to say that. It's funny to have people come back and say, "Oh, I like the other stuff more," when in a sense I was just pushing that out back then. Whereas the newer stories I've spent, it's a lot more time on each story. I've been much more methodical, and yet, but you have two ends of the spectrum. And the cool thing about every story in the book is chronological in the time that I've written it. I think there might be one that was out of place because I couldn't publish it right away, but other than that, every story going 1, 2, 3 is literally written in that order.
Oh, that's great. That helps me, and that feeds my OCD. So I'm right there with you on that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, you can jump around and read anything, but literally you could read them in the order that I wrote them. That's that would be the only benefit in reading them from start to finish. Yeah.
Okay.
In that order. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's really cool that you've done that, Sharkchild. It's really neat that you've made your own little universe, if you will, and that people can actually cut through it like that. And it's I'm excited to be able to get the entire collection and add that, because I'm a big time book fanatic. I don't take the time to read as much as I should, but I do love to read. I'm a nighttime reader, if you will, and it helps me go to sleep. It's the most calm part of the day, the night, and it's especially when it comes to horror and the occult and the supernatural. It kind of gives that extra feeling of like, oh man, I'm actually in this world that I'm reading. The living world of what we have isn't there to distract you, and you're just kind of sucked in. That's how it works for me. And personally, that's what really attracted me to the books that you have, is not only the cover and the way that the book is made, but the category and the genre. And I actually saw an ad on Facebook for yours, and I'm just like, oh man, I've never seen these before. And I just started getting into this like book frenzy where I started buying a whole bunch, collecting a whole bunch. I'm a big collector of Flame Tree books, and it's a British-based publisher, and they typically take a whole collection, a whole bunch of short stories and some short novellas, and they're classics. Some are new authors and writers, and they put them into these really nice, shiny, metallic books, and they just look fantastic. And a lot of these stories are really, really good. I recommend them to anyone. And so I started collecting those, and I started collecting history, and then I started seeing online these unique collections, and that's where you came in. I'm just like, oh man, I haven't seen a collection that I can actually say reminds me of my childhood horror fan books that I had, the scary stories to tell in the dark. And I found yours. I'm just like, this is something I need to get into, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, those ads were really a game changer for me last year. Like, it really got in front of a lot of like people that like you really had an eye for my kind of material that I create. So
yeah, and as someone that's into the occult, the supernatural, it's not always about the real stuff for me. I like to take a step back and actually enjoy the fiction of everything. Cool. To enjoy some old-fashioned scary stories. I'm game for that, and I kind of find it fun in a way where when I read these stories, I can take what I've actually experienced and place that into these stories and be like, oh man, I can see the reality of that aspect. Some people, they might just be like, oh man, this is scary, but there's no way this could be real. I'm over here like, oh man, this is scary, and this is very real. Oh man, maybe I shouldn't have read that before you go to bed, Man, but yeah, it's neat stuff, I have to say, Sharkchild. I'm glad there's people like you out there doing what you're doing and, making these books. And people like you that are entrepreneurs, it just goes to show the power of people when it comes to unification and, even a good old-fashioned scary story. I find that a very positive and enlightening thing, to be honest.
Right. It's funny when you talk about like, scary stories, but they can bring such positivity and inspiration into people's lives, even though what they actually are is kind of, strange.
Yeah.
And that goes, but that's even for heavy metal and death metal and stuff. There's even been studies on it that the people that listen to those musics have just as much like happiness as people who listen to pop or whatever, So.
Yeah, that's very true. I've heard that, and I have a lot of friends that are actually into that type of music. And the funniest thing, the people, my friends that enjoy that type of music, they are actually some of the most Christian and most spiritually inclined people I've ever met. And even someone like such as myself, I do enjoy some good old-fashioned heavy metal from time to time. I'm more of the classic heavy metal, 80s and early 90s and whatnot. But sometimes I see my friends, I'm just like, you guys should not be listening to heavy metal. And yes, I'm judging by appearance and what you guys are into, but you guys are into that, and that's just, it throws me off. But I find it so cool that people can be so positive and spiritually inclined, but yet they can still enjoy a specific type of music that, it might be heavy, it might be a more powerful music.
Forget too that it's fiction as well. Just like if someone would pick up a Stephen King book, if you wanted to listen to Slipknot or whatever, it's fiction. It's just music. It's just a different type of expression. But we sometimes try and categorize them differently. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's where people have a little hard time, understanding that music doesn't necessarily determine the person. I mean, in some cases, I guess it can express a person's maybe their situation or the mentality that they're going through. It doesn't make them a person, but it's an expression of what people might be feeling or going through, and that's why music's so powerful and important. But yeah, it's really unique in the sense of music and even books, how things that some people categorize as a dark or negative thing is actually a positive upbringing, for people to connect.
Yeah. This is something really sad to bring up, but it kind of it ties in to this. But I got some really sad news today because I have a follower on Facebook actually who you could probably see his comments on my Facebook page because he shows up a lot, and he's actually had comments on some of my recent posts. But his mother reached out today and told me that he had committed suicide on Friday.
Oh wow!
I kind of lost it earlier today. Like I got really emotional, and it just shows you. And I was something positive, in his life, and I'm scared that like people will think that I influenced it or my work would, because even his mom was asking like, oh, well, what do you write? And I was like, well, I have to tell her what I write. I write horror stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I hope. But I'm like, but I'm the beacon of light in his. I like to think I was the beacon of light. I was what he looked forward to read.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He kept saying, man, keep it up. Like take your time, looking forward to the next book. But it's like, oh man, like that news just like broke. That was just terrible. I've never had that happen to me before. And it was just like someone who's like there on my page talking to me. And, it was just, I guess, I don't know if it's the times because of what's going on in the world or, what, but yeah, man, he was there and now he's not. And it's just like, that's just crazy. And it's just funny. I'm doing this podcast too today. It's like a lot happening today, I guess.
Yeah, I have to say, Sharkchild, when it comes to emotional and energy infused situation, that really takes the cake. And I hope with you sharing that on the podcast, that this can give him and his legacy and his family some type of positive energy that he has been thought of and he will be remembered. And it can go into the supernatural in the sense of maybe he was influenced by something. It necessarily wasn't him that drove him to suicide, but it could have been something else. We don't know everyone's personal lives or what they choose to do, but me personally, I'm going to send my prayers, my positive energies to him and his family, even not knowing them. That's just how I feel about people. I mean, I'll pass people on the street, and if they look down, or if they smile at me, I'll simply say, God, please bless them. Just out of politeness, just out of the fact that I feel they're deserving to have a little extra boost, whatever I can give, and I pray for him and his family. And I can understand that being a damper on you,
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. Like literally I had posted a picture of my kids last Friday, my two sons, and he was like one of the two comments on there saying like, he's like, just, take care of your family. You know what I mean? And that was the same day that he passed. It's
wow.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of just ties into, I don't know. I mean, I was trying to tie it in. Now I doubt, I don't know how I was trying to tie it in, but
that's all right.
I think it was just us like finding positivity in everything.
Yeah.
And how like I didn't want it to get twisted the wrong way.
Yeah.
My influence in his life, because I feel like my influence would have been positive more so than any type of negativity there. But I don't know. Absolutely.
No, I feel like when it comes to horror and again, like heavy metal, like we were talking about, it's that type of stuff that can be an outlet for people that are dealing or facing with those negative energies. Whether it is spiritual oppression, or it might be a mental challenge that they're having. It's what people like you, what you guys do that gives them that extra boost of enjoyment throughout life. And if that's all that they get, that really makes them feel good. Like, man, I had a good life. I had these books to look forward to. I got to enjoy these stories. It makes life enjoyable. And I totally agree with you on that, Sharkchild. That is a positive outreach, and it's good that you're doing what you're doing. You're giving people something to enjoy.
It just sucks it wasn't enough. Something else got the better of him. But yeah.
Well, we can only do so much, as a single entity ourselves. And again, I truly believe we've been gifted with free will, and regardless of what we do with it, it's ultimately up to us. It's nobody else's decision. It's no one else's influence that can truly, make that final decision. Influence can be very powerful, on a person, of course, but ultimately it's that person's decision on what to do. And hopefully whatever the next life brings, no matter how we reach it after our passing, hopefully there's a better path that we can take, and more can come out of this life into the next. I feel like that's possible.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think so.
All right, so Mr. Sharkchild, let me ask you this. With your works coming into play like this, in our discussions tonight that we've had about the paranormal, have you had any epiphanies or any type of ideas that you could kind of take from your work and put it into the paranormal, or take from the paranormal and maybe put into your future works? Has anything like that popped up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I put a lot of ideas in my stories that sometimes, like, I fictionalize it, but I actually believe some of it to be true, in a minor sense. I'm trying to think of a story that it was. I'm looking here.
Okay.
If it doesn't come to me, then that's that. But I'm trying to find. There was one story that I was speaking with you about how I feel like we're information after we die, and that's how we can transfer from one place to another.
Yes.
And there was a story. I can't remember which one it was that kind of was the inspiration behind it. And I remember because I have a Patreon page, and I talked about what inspired the story. So I'd have to go back and look and see which one it was, because I have so many stories now. It's so funny, I can't even remember my own stuff sometimes.
That's okay. That happens to the best of us. Trust me.
I actually wonder, like, how Stephen King or whatever can, like, answer any question about, like, work he wrote like 30 years ago.
Man,
I'm sure there's fans that know more about it now than he does, or you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I do. I like to put in little philosophical jabs, or other things that I might believe in real life, and kind of work them into my stories.
Gotcha. Nice.
I don't know if that answers that question, or you thought of yours a little bit.
No, I feel like that's a pretty good tune-in, in the sense that you take this world and you mix it into your world, essentially. And yeah, I think that's a very unique approach, and that's kind of what I was getting at. If you take any aspects from this and put it into the next one.
Yeah, I do. I know, even like with my dreams, and that, even that, I talked about that space of darkness, or that void in that room. I wrote a story called The Sermon of the Shadow in Darkness, which is my 108th story of the Darkverse, and that kind of was inspired by that. So if anyone wants to check that one out. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of them that are kind of influenced by things that happen in the real world.
See, and that's stuff right there that I personally appreciate, is that when you take your own experiences and then you mold it into this, enjoyable read, but there's some truth behind it. That's really what makes my mind tick. Like, man, this isn't just a story. This is a possibility, a reality, of someone that's experienced it, or someone that possibly could, moving forward.
Yeah. Obviously, I dramatized the evil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah. Who knows? Who's to say that some of this stuff isn't real, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's things influencing me in real life. So I just, I exaggerate that in my stories, but still, I mean, that's probably the case for a lot of authors. Everything is probably an exaggeration of some experience or some thought they had in in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. And, thinking about it, it really makes you wonder in the sense of everything that has been made. It comes from a human's mind from this world. And with that being said, it truly makes you wonder how fake is fake. Everything that's fiction, just how fiction is it? Is it truly fiction in the sense that there's no truth, no reality to the possibility of what's being said? Or is there a possibility at the very least, even with science fiction, with like UFOs and the War of the Worlds and
a lot of science fiction has become real technology.
Exactly.
These guys from like the 80s or whatever that were writing these sci-fi opera novels or whatever, like literally had ideas that are real now.
Yeah, no, it's no joke. It's it really makes you wonder, like, man, did people know about this before? They just didn't have the time and technology, or they weren't allowed to release it, or what's going on here? People have these imaginations, if you will, and then eventually they become reality. Like, how is that a possibility? How can you make something up and then literally make it in real life? How? It's like, oh my God. And then you start thinking about the spiritual part. Like, okay, we've been thinking up this paranormal stuff for a long time. We've been talking spirits and demons and angels for a long time as humans. Where's the reality of it? And then that's where, people like you and I come in, even though you may not have been on an investigation. I mean, Sharkchild, it seems like your life has been an investigation, or you as a haunted person, you've had these experiences that some investigators would only be able to dream of, or that have experienced. And, with that being said, actually, would you ever consider going on a paranormal investigation, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I would love to. I would for sure love to. And I need to add haunted to my tags on like Twitter and social media. I should put haunted person. I need to add that.
Yes, you should. As a paranormal investigator and a paranormal enthusiast, not that it matters or anything, but you have my blessing to be a haunted person.
I'm a certified haunted person.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, for sure. Like the experiences that you've just discussed with me tonight, it's I would deem you a haunted person for sure. The biggest mystery is how and why. It's that's really what I'd like to know. And even after the podcast here, if you'd like to keep in touch, Sharkchild, we can continue to talk. And if you want to try to get rid of this thing, I'd be more than happy to help you. Then
talk.
And as we get you back on the podcast, we could talk about your progression. If you've had more attacks, less. If you feel like this has been lifted. And, go on from there. And we could try to work together and see what we can, conjure up in the sense of something good, not bad.
Yeah. No, let's do it. And then I know if you're out in California, Southern California, ever for an investigation, let me know.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll tag along.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, actually, my team and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make this anytime soon.
Right.
Especially
some corrections need to occur in the economy first.
Oh, yeah. Right? But, moving forward, we would like to go to California because we've had the opportunity to speak with David Oman. Not sure if you know of him, but he lives in this place called, obviously, the Oman House. And it's actually a home that was built no more than maybe 100 feet or so from the Sharon Tate murder house from the 1970s. Okay. And are you familiar with the Sharon Tate murders? And,
yeah.
Okay. And like the Manson cult and everything?
Yeah.
Well, David Oman, he's a big-time paranormal enthusiast, and I would actually dub him a historian. He knows a lot about, the Sharon Tate murders and Charles Manson and all that, and we've actually had the opportunity to have him come onto the podcast. And he gives tours at his house, and he wrote a book on his house and Sharon Tate and a lot of the history that happened back in the 70s. And I guess he and his mom actually had given car rides to some of the cult members of the Manson family back in the day.
Wow.
And of course, he didn't really know much about it as a kid, but growing up, his mom and whatnot, told him about it, and he started understanding, like, oh, crap. I was tied in with that. But anyways, he's in California. His house is allegedly very haunted. And he's invited us to come out to his house and stay a night with them, and check out some of the local areas of California, and maybe we could even invite you, and we could talk to David, and all of us get together and do an investigation at his home.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
I would participate. Yeah,
I'll send you some links after the podcast here, and share that with you, and see what you think about the Omen House. It's really, really interesting, for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
So, Sharkchild, I hate this part of the podcast. I wish as a human, we could just stay up, not have to eat, not have to sleep, and just keep podcasting. But it looks like that we're coming to the end here. But before we go, very important stuff. I would like to know, and I'm sure the listeners would too, if people would like to reach out to you, purchase your books, ask some questions, listen to your podcast, how can they get a hold of you, and where can they reach you? What type of outlets do you have?
Yeah, so everything has the tag Sharkchild. So that's facebook.com/Sharkchild, twitter.com/Sharkchild, Instagram, the username is Sharkchild. My email is sharkchild@sharkchild.com. So easy enough. You can find me.
Nice.
You can find me. And the website is sharkchild.com or shop.sharkchild.com. But that's where you can buy my books. And I have some shirts and other things. Right now, some of the books are on pre-order still because of the delays with the print runs coming here. But you can still order them, and then I'll ship them out as soon as they're in.
Wonderful. Yeah, so even if people type in like Sharkchild just in Google or like the Dark Verse, it'll pop up.
They'll find me. You'll find me. Uh-huh.
Wonderful. Well, you guys heard it there. If you want to get a hold of Mr. Sharkchild, that's how you do it. And checking out your podcast, you're on all the podcast platforms,
yeah,
right?
And for that, you could Sharkchild would probably work, or you could just search for the Dark Verse. That's the easiest way. And that's on most everything.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. Sharkchild, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for sharing your outlets and your stories and all the information about your books and kind of how you got into the whole, writing world and the paranormal, supernatural. And, I most definitely look forward to having you back on. And hopefully next time I can have the rest of my team on and all of us can speak with you and they can throw some questions at you too.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, Schuler.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. You have a good one now.
You too.
All right. Another episode knocked out. Truly, I hope you enjoyed this one just as much as the first. With myself and Mr. Sharkchild, it was a blast. Now, for all of you out there listening, again, if you want to reach out to Mr. Sharkchild directly, questions, concerns, comments, maybe even some updates with his own stories and experiences, you know now how to do it. Go onto Google, type in Mr. Sharkchild, or even the Dark Verse, and I'm sure he will be more than happy to reach back out and say hello. The Dark Verse truly sounds remarkable and like a great collector's piece for any supernatural or horror fanatic. I actually came across Mr. Sharkchild's books on a whim, and that's kind of where it led up to this point of getting him on the show. So I'm really excited to learn the entirety of the Dark Verse story, and I hope you all are all the same. Now, before we go, you know what to do if you'd like to reach out to myself or the Para Connection directly. Go to piltparanormal.com. Any questions, concerns, or even just wanting to say hey, we're always happy to reach out and say hello back at you. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and of course, be sure to keep an eye out for the next one. Until next time, stay frosty.